Well, good afternoon. When life throws you a curveball and challenges, how you respond to that and what you do with that, I think, is a real testament to someone's character. So my Aunt Elaine, and I call him Uncle Jim because middle name is James, my grandfather's name is Martin, my cousin's name is Martin, they're all part of the same family, so the family calls him Jim versus Marty, so if I say Uncle Jim, I'm talking about the former governor. My Aunt Elaine, who was my godmother, got Alzheimer's early, and he'll talk to you about things he did right, a lot he did wrong, to prepare others for their journey. So to take trouble that you have to help others deal with the same issue, I think is very, very commendable. And although you met him as a governor, and I met as an uncle, I think his influence in this area probably even exceeds what his governorship was. Not that it wasn't very good, by the way. It was so good that you might know my politics are slightly different than his, but when I was at Whitewater as a junior, I was the head of the Young Democrats for a semester to help them get elected again, even though I tend to go the other direction as far as my own politics go. But character matters a lot. So please, James, welcome my dear uncle, Martin J. Schreiber.
Well, thank you, Bill. Are we coming through with hearing okay? Because I certainly don't want to have you sit here for that 2 hours and not have you hear anything. But it's really a real pleasure for me to be here. I've been in Janesville many times, particularly during my term at office or campaigning for public life, and it's just hard to imagine all of the changes that your community has gone through, with General Motors and so forth. That was going big and strong back there in the 60s when I was more active and so forth. But to come back and get such a warm reception with the Rotarians, they treated me so well that they thought I actually won the election for governor. And so I let them go along that line. I didn't dissuade them from that. But so it's just been really thus far a very special kind of a visit. And I hope that after this is over, you feel that it was time well spent for you. But we want to talk about the book My Two Elaines, and just so you know, this here book is the one that is for sale for $15 period. It retails for $16.99. If you're from Canada, it's $25.99. So if you are from Canada and you buy the book for $25.99, when you become the 51st state, you will get that money back in the difference between the two. So we want you to feel comfortable about that. The $15 includes sales tax, if you don't tell Governor Evers about that. So this book is published by Harper's Publishing. What happened was this book is a result of this book. Now this book I self-published, and self-publishing a book is when you write something that nobody cares about. And so you hire your own printer, your own editor, your own copyright, your own graphics person, and then they produce this book. Well, what happened was this book, when the Harper people saw this book, they felt it should go nationwide. So they in turn took the same story, we added an index and we added a bibliography and we added some other things that now produces this book. So they're exactly the same, but with some additions. When I met with the Rotarians this morning, I told them in actuality there are 90,000 of these books in print, and only 89,800 in my garage. So this book, and I'll talk to you a little bit more about this book, but the title, of course, is My Two Elaines. And the first Elaine, well, that was the girl I met as a freshman in high school in Latin class. And we sat next to one another, her last name Thaney, my last name Schreiber, and it was love at first sight. And so we dated, and we went steady, and we got engaged, and we got married, and 4 children, and 13 grandchildren, now 10 great-grandchildren. But my advisor, my friend, my companion, everything that you could want in a life's partner. To her legacy, the thing that she has done the most for me. That if I would be a hard work, if I would be in a campaign, she would be the hardest working campaigner. But what's most important, if I would lose, she would never let me feel defeated. And it's a whole understanding of whatever we might have, we may lose, but we can never allow ourselves to feel defeated. That's what she did for me, and please understand that's one of the most important things you can do for yourself. And yes, there's going to be challenges, but you never want to allow yourself to feel defeated. That's the first Elaine. The second Elaine, about 63, 64 years of age, began to get lost driving to and from places she had been going to and from for the past 10 years. A marvelous cook, but sometimes would mess up her recipes so badly that she would cry. So that was the beginning of the second Elaine. We went through this journey, roughly 8.5 years or so at home, trying to do the best that I could, and then roughly 8 years plus at assisted living memory care. And through those experiences, I learned one thing above others, but many of them, but one thing above others, and that is if Alzheimer's is bad, ignorance of the disease is worse. And when I say ignorance of the disease is worse, I don't mean how the amyloids work and so forth. I mean, how do you and I, as caregivers and as friends of the person who is ill, how do we help people who are on this journey? And ignorance of the disease, and I would say by the medical profession, and ignorance of the disease by the medical profession who doesn't understand that when there is a diagnosis of this disease, there are two patients. There's the person who is ill, but then also the caregiver. 40% of all caregivers die before their loved one due to stress-related illness. 40% of all caregivers die before their loved one due to stress-related illness. I say that once, twice, maybe a bunch of times, so caregivers can understand this is not something that you play around with. This is not something where you begin to develop some personal pride and thinking you're going to handle it all. That's not that at all. So, but anyway, my two Elaines. So I want you to know about this book here. As I said, this was among the first. This is the 3rd edition, and this is the 9th edition, 9th printing here. But people have told me that they have had this book, and they started to read it, and they couldn't put it down. Has that ever happened? You started to read? Okay, well, here's how that happened in this case. What happened was, this goes back like 3 years before Harper's was involved, but a couple of Januaries ago. And so what happened is I was running out of books. So I called up the printer. I need books as soon as possible. And so the printer got the books. This was in January, by the way. So the printer got the books done, and not only on time, but ahead of time. And so he got them delivered. So I had the books now. Do you see how shiny this is? That's like a lacquer, like a varnish. Well, what happened is he didn't let it dry, and it became sticky. So people picked up the book and they started to read it, and they wanted to put it down, and they couldn't put it down. And so, but here's what happened. So they held it like this. It's in January, and I want to explain this to you so you understand. It was in January, and they had, of course, we all have to go out and buy, butter or eggs and milk and so forth. So they wanted to go outside, but they couldn't put the book and their hand through the arm of the coat at the same time. And so what happened, they had to drape the jacket over their shoulder and walk around like this, which was very good advertising for the book. I'm sort of glad that happened. But then we get to the next point. They walked around like this outside. I am being charged with 16 counts of frostbite. Whether it was 16 hands, including the 4 fingers, or whether it was 4 hands with 4 fingers, I don't know. But I just want you to know what happens when you become a world-famous author that nobody knows or cares about. So you can understand that. My cousin Bill mentioned, of course, we were involved in government for a period of time, and I was going to share with you my first experience with dementia. That goes back to 1978 when I was running for governor. It was a governor election, and I was in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. And I gave this talk in Eau Claire, and after the talk was over, this elderly gentleman came up to me, and he sort of pounded me on the shoulder, and he said, that had to be the world's most god-awful speech I've ever heard in my whole life. his wife was there, and she heard that, and she was embarrassed. You could tell she came rushing over, and she says, Governor, she says, please excuse my husband. He's old, and he's senile, and all he does is just repeat whatever he hears everybody else say. So learning about this dementia and learning about Alzheimer's is something that I really began to understand too late. And if I say there's one thing worse than Alzheimer's, it's ignorance of the disease. One of the things that we caregivers don't understand, and that is the importance of joining the world of the person who now is. As long as I tried to keep Elaine in my world, it didn't happen on a Thursday, it happened on a Friday. Elaine, it wasn't the Smiths, it was the Joneses. Elaine, why are you asking me the same question? That's not it. It's joining their world. For example, Elaine asked me once, how are my parents? I said, they're both dead. No, they're not. Elaine, your parents. So I promised myself I would never put her through that again, because she began to think and realize she didn't say goodbye to her parents, much less attend the funeral. I promised her, myself and her, that I would never put her through that again. So the next time she asked me, how are my parents? Oh, I said, Elaine, I said, they're doing well. I said, your mom likes her church work, and your dad likes his sports. Oh, she said, that makes me feel so happy, so happy. Well, that's what I call therapeutic fibbing. Therapeutic fibbing. Two things that you should know about therapeutic fibbing. Number one, I tried it the first year of marriage. The second point about therapeutic fibbing, and not everyone believes me when I tell this story. Not everyone believes me, but I'm going to share it with you. Do you remember the story about Moses and Mount Sinai and the Ten Commandments? Well, I was there, and I helped Moses, okay? So here we're on top of this mountain with Moses, and I say, Mo, first of all, if you're going to help Moses, don't call him Mo, because he just absolutely hates it. So how are we going to get this stuff down to the bottom? And so we took these great big tablets of stone, we worked and we huffed and we puffed, and here we got down to the bottom, and here this great big rock. And I looked at it, and Arabic Hebrew, I said, Moses, interpret that for me. Well, one of the things he said, don't bear false witness, which is no lying. Don't lie. That's against the Ten Commandments. I thought, that's not so good for caregivers. But I rocked around the other side of this tablet of stone, and written larger than the Ten Commandments were the words, therapeutic fibbing is good. Therapeutic fibbing is advisable. Therapeutic is something that is very important to help our loved one live their best life possible. I want to mention the matter of living best life possible. When you get that Alzheimer's prognosis, without question, we know, well, 20 years ago when Elaine was first diagnosed, today, it's no longer more curable today and preventable than it was 20 plus years ago. So what are we going to do? We can either accept defeat, which we're not going to do, or we can understand what is something we can do. And what we can do is make a determination to help our loved one live their best life possible. How do we help our loved one live their best life possible? Now, understand that's something doable. Alzheimer's we can't cure. But what we can do is make a determination and have a realizable understanding of we did something, and that has helped our loved one live their best life possible. How do we do that? We do that by joining their world. So important. As I said, as long as we try and keep them in our world, that is not the answer. Our understanding and our answer is to, so very, very hard to let go of this person who once was. We have to do that so we can embrace the person who now is. One of the things that I think makes this caregiving challenge what it is our lack of understanding of the grieving process of grieving. So I had a friend of 78 years old, and what happened was he had dinner one night and laid to watch television, and he died of a massive heart attack, just snap of a finger. He was gone. And there was a funeral, and people could come by and express their sympathy. And very importantly, there was closure. There was closure. A caregiver never gets closure. You see your loved one leave a little bit every day, and you see them in a situation where you are losing them. And sometimes we don't understand that we are in the process actually of grieving. And if we can understand that, that can make such a difference in our life to acknowledge the fact and try and deal with the matter of how best to handle this grieving process, because it's there. Yes, we have the worry about how can we pay for it. Yes, we're going to worry about why things aren't going so good, but also there is this whole aspect of grieving. And somehow or another, if we can acknowledge that, I think it can help us along on this journey. One of the things that also comes to mind is that this journey takes us to places we never thought we would be. In my wildest dreams ever did I think that my nephew would grab me out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning and whisk me over to Janesville. And so, which reminds me, places we never thought we would be, now being here with you. I never thought I'd be here with you today, but here we are. But what reminds me of back in 1962, I was elected to the state senate. And one of my responsibilities was to go to Washington, D.C. for a meeting. And if you take a 5:30 in the morning airplane out of Milwaukee, you can go to Washington, D.C. and have your meeting and come back the same day. It's 5 o'clock in the morning and they're boarding the airplane. In front of me is this very distinguished looking gentleman. And as he gets on the airplane, he asks the flight attendant, does this plane stop in Detroit? Oh, she says, yes, it does, of course, sir. We stop in Detroit, people get off the airplane, people get on the airplane, and we go on to Washington, D.C. He said, oh, excellent. He said, I have to get off in Detroit. She said, fine. No, he said, I have to get off. She said, fine. He said, look at this, I'm inclined to fall asleep. And if I fall asleep and don't get off of this airplane, I'm going to miss one of the most important meetings of my whole career. I have to. She says, fine. He says, will you help me get on? She says, yes. She said, I promise I'll get you off of this airplane in Detroit. Well, now we land in Washington, D.C. And here this distinguished looking gentleman gets off of the airplane. He goes to the flight attendant and he berates her like you've never heard anyone berated before. Oh my gosh, I'd never seen anything like it. Well, I felt sorry for the flight attendant. So after he left, I went to the flight attendant and I said, my goodness, I said, that man was angry. I've never seen anyone so angry. And she said, he was angry. You should have seen the fellow that I put off in Detroit. So it takes us to places we never thought we would be, and we have to be open for that. So also what I want caregivers to understand, the book is about my two Elaines, okay? Well, there's also, and should be, my two Martys. My two Elaines, the first Elaine, of course, is the person who is healthy. The second Elaine, the person with Alzheimer's. There's Martin Schreiber, who was with Elaine, who is healthy. And then there's Martin Schreiber, the caregiver. There has to be two Martys. If your name is Mary and you're a caregiver, there has to be two Marys. If your name is Sam and you're a caregiver, there has to be two Sams. Why? Well, because you are handling something different. As a caregiver, you have to take on a new mindset. So, for example, when Elaine was diagnosed, the doctor says there are 4 things you should be doing. Number 1, Numenda and Aricept. Well, they're supposed to delay the symptoms. I don't know if they work, but they recommended we were grabbing anything, so we did that. Then next, socialization, how important that is. And then third, walking, which is the best exercise for the brain. And then fourthly, a glass of red wine every evening. Well, Elaine got 4 weeks ahead with the glass of red wine every evening and 3 weeks behind with the walking. But anyway, so here, the first Marty, okay, with the healthy wife. Go for a walk, that's a half an hour. Half an hour there, half an hour back. Okay, first Marty, we're walking. Elaine says, look at that beautiful flower. We don't have time for that. We got to get this walking because that's where we are. The second Marty, walking with his wife, she says, look at that beautiful flower. Yeah, let's stop and look at that for a while. Or hear the bird. Let's stop and hear the bird for a while. It's a different mindset. The second Marty no longer feels he has to correct his wife for everything she says. The second Marty has to understand that joining her world is helping her live her best life possible. The second Marty understands that to ask for help is a matter of not giving up, a matter of courage. The first mighty brave and bold and arrogant and self-centered, but you have to take on a new mindset. It's not have to. It's wanting to help our loved one live their best life possible. I want you to know that part and parcel of living the best life possible is for the caregiver to live their best life possible as well. So I want you to know that there's 2 points here. I want you to know that living best life possible. Before I went to print, I found a series of notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping since her diagnosis. And I want you to know that we had prayed together and we had cried together, but never did I understand the courage that it takes to be diagnosed with this illness and then continue forward. But never did I understand how much of a lifeline I was to her. Here she's going through this questioning and this worry, and she knows that her mind is leaving her and so forth. And what is happening? I'm her lifeline. And so as you take a look at her journals and read what she has said, there is just no question, but she was depending upon me as her lifeline. So let's assume hypothetically I win the lottery, and it's the $1 billion lottery, and I decide to take everybody here to a cruise in the Gulf of Mexico, right, in the Gulf of Mexico, Bill. But anyway, so now we're all cruising in the Gulf of Mexico, and we're having a good time, and we're drinking mint juleps, and we're drinking Coca-Cola with rum and everything, and one of you falls overboard. And so what we do is we decide to throw you a lifeline. And you grab the lifeline and you're saved? No, you're not saved. Why? Because the lifeline breaks. Why did it break? Because it became weak. And so we as caregivers are lifeline to our loved one. But what we do is we make that lifeline weak. How do we do it? By not getting enough sleep. By not getting a proper diet. By maybe drinking too much alcohol. By maybe doing all of the things or not doing all of the things that one should do to live a happy life anyway. So it is so important to understand that helping our loved one live their best life possible absolutely includes the caregiver living their best life possible and taking care of their own health. One of the things that becomes so important, and that is to understand that, yes, as a caregiver, you're dealing with your loved one, but at the same time, there are children and grandchildren, and there are neighbors, and there are our fellow church people and community people who also can grow and learn and be helped by what you do. And there is no sense in the caregiver doing a suicidal journey by simply not taking care of themselves. Because believe me, I would say that being a caregiver is sort of like entering the Olympics of great challenges. As you would be entering the Olympics for any kind of an event, you would train and you would take care of yourself. Well, as you are going into the great Olympics of challenges as a caregiver, to understand, please, the importance of taking care of yourself. Now, we mentioned that caregiving could not be, that Alzheimer's could not be cured or prevented. So we talked about that. But there was some time when they thought Elaine was actually getting better. And I'll tell you how that came about. So we're eating lunch at Assisted Living Memory Care, and she looks at me, and she begins to tell me and everybody else around how intelligent and how good looking I am. And what's your name?
Mary Lou.
Mary Lou? And your social security number, Mary Lou. But so anyway, so there was a doctor and a nurse that was sitting at this table over here, and they heard her tell me how intelligent and how good looking and they looked at me and they said, she's right. So she's getting better. So they wrote an article for the New England Medical Journal. And the New England Medical Journal, they're no dummies. They wrote back and said, you have to show 3 things where someone is getting better. But he said, you only show 2 things. So they rejected the article. Some time went by. and by happenstance, we're sitting at the table, same lunchroom, and same doctor and nurse sitting over there. And so now Elaine gets on one of these tangents. Where did we meet? Where did we meet? How did we? So forth. Elaine, we met when we were freshmen in high school. We sat next to one another in Latin class. I fell in love with you right away. I said I knew I wanted you for my wife and also for the mother of my children. And I said, not only that, I said, but if any boy got within 50 feet of you, I bopped him on the head. And she looked at me and she said, you're a bullshitter. Well, now they have the three things, okay? And definitely in the process of getting better. So in talking with you about helping our loved one live their best life possible, Bill reminded me of an article that I wrote a while back, in which I was sharing with the reader the fact that I was giving a presentation at a Barnes & Noble in Wauwatosa, near Milwaukee. And during the presentation, talking about joining the life of the person who now is and so forth, a woman stood up, and I believe her name was Mary, and she said that, she said, one day I'm at work and my mother calls me, and she said, come quick, because Dad, who was early dementia, Alzheimer's, come quick because Dad is acting really, really strange. And so she, in the telling, she said she rushed home, and so when she got into the home and into the living room, here her dad was in the middle of the living room floor, and he was going like this. And so she said, Dad, what are you doing? Well, he says, I'm fishing. Oh, all right, well, can I fish with you? And that's, of course, So Mary said that was one of the most fine experiences that she could remember ever having with her dad for a long time. And so they fished together and they talked, and she said it was wonderful. So now the episode is over, and what has happened is as she leaves, her mom says, what do I do if this ever happens again? What do I do? And Mary said, Mom, get in the boat with Dad. And I think if there's one summary about helping our loved one, get in the same boat with them, because that's going to help them best live their best life possible. So it's been a sort of a long day, and sometimes when you make a presentation, anybody here ever been a teacher? No? Yeah, there you are. And so, what grades did you teach?
I taught high school here in town, in Joel Craig.
Oh, and what did you teach?
I taught home economics, old home economics. Now it's family and consumer ed.
Okay. And what did you teach?
I was a intermediate and middle school classroom teacher, but I was also a librarian in the school.
Okay. And there was one over here too. Yeah.
I started at the high school, Beloit Turner Special Ed, and I finished at the elementary school as a principal.
All right. So the strong teacher genes in our family. So my sister, his mom was a teacher. In fact, worked to develop early childhood at a number of different locations. My wife was a teacher. My brother's a teacher. My brother's children are teachers and so forth. And I don't know, I guess, to let you know that part of trying to make a difference in people's lives is part of the genetics of it all. And so maybe what I'm going to do is I want to read just a few excerpts. I told you that Elaine kept a diary and notes, and I just will share a couple of them with you at this moment. But before we go any further, I want to acknowledge the fact that the Alzheimer's Association is here with a representative. They have their walk coming up a week from Sunday or Saturday? Saturday. A week from Saturday. Yeah. So, and then also another great aid is the Aging and Disability Resource Center. Anybody here experience with them? If not, please make sure that you keep that ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center. They're extremely helpful. And then to take a moment to recognize Amy. Amy is running a special group, a memory cafe, and so important for people to get together and to share an understanding of the disease and how they might better experience some moments of joy. And so here, let me just read a few of these notes from Elaine. So when Elaine was first diagnosed, she wrote what she called a letter to her dear loved ones. And she writes, "It wasn't until a few weeks ago that I really had to say, yes, I do have Alzheimer's. I had read of signs that indicate Alzheimer's, like getting overly upset for no reason and having trouble with names and directions. But I still didn't think it was a problem for me. But in hindsight, for too long, I've been getting lost driving, having trouble keeping days straight, and difficulties with names and schedules. Still, I still felt I could handle it. It won't get worse. But this morning, I started reading about the mid-stage of Alzheimer's in hopes of preparing myself better and realized I'm not very far away. That is most scary, but I have to accept it. And so, as I said before, I'm ready to go to print, and I find these notes and journals that Elaine had been keeping, and I went through them and wanted to share some of the emotions that she had. In any number of those notes, for example, this one here, she writes, I would be so lost without you, so please continue to take care of yourself for me as well as for you. And she also writes here, I wish my Alzheimer's would dissipate. I'd like to be the smart wife and mother I used to be. Now I have to waste so much time just trying to figure out what I should be doing without seeming as smart as I used to be. I need to rely on Marty for everything, and I'm very lucky he continues to keep me. Life gets more difficult every day. And so to give you a sense how life gets more difficult for her every day, listen to this as she writes, I'm not enjoying my role anymore as Marty's wife. Because of his having concerns about my Alzheimer's, he doesn't let me be me. He doesn't let me go for a walk if I want to, or to the store alone. I used to appreciate him, what I thought was concern, but he holds me captive much too much. I'm going to try to have a second opinion, because I really don't think I have any problem. I know how to drive or walk any place I want to, but he doesn't believe me, and I hate the control he has placed on me. I don't even think I have Alzheimer's per se. And so I'm thinking about the courage that it takes to go through all of that, and here I'm correcting her for everything that she said. It wasn't the Joneses, it was the Smiths. It wasn't Thursday, it was Friday. Why'd you put the car keys in? I told you 10 times you're leaving at 5, and so forth. And so it helped me better understand what she is going through. But I want to just close with here's what we're going to do. I'm going to close with my favorite one. Then I think I'll tell you a little bit about prayer, patience, and persistence, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So with the question and answer, what I will do is I will try and repeat the question so everyone can hear it. If you ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, I will rephrase your question. So there'll be no question you can ask me that I won't be able to respond to. So, but anyway, my favorite one that Elaine writes, she writes, life is good. And I plan to have it continue that way until my children tell me it's time for a nursing home or something like that. This is realistic with what my Alzheimer's book says about my future. But till then, I will try my best to be normal, whatever that means, and keep my happy side of life always continuing. I'm lucky to have such a good family and many friends to help get me through all this. And so another great day to thank the Lord and smile, smile, smile. And so I remember that especially. And gosh, we're going to be losing some things, but we can never allow ourselves to feel defeated. And but anyway, prayer, patience, and persistence. And someone told me this, and I think it's true, but anyway, someone told me this lady had this parrot, and all that this parrot knew how to say was, Polly wants a party, Polly wants a party. Well, what happened was she's expecting guests from out of town, people she went to college with, a university, and now they're coming to visit, and she's afraid they're going to think much less of her because the only words her parrot knows is Polly wants a party, Polly wants a party. She becomes so distressed about this that she goes to see her priest. And she says, Father, you have to help me. I've got this parrot. Polly wants a party. My friends they're going to think less of me. What do I do? And the priest said, this is a miracle. He says, I myself have 2 parrots, Peter parrot and Paul parrot. And he said, I've had them for 7 years. He says, they do nothing but pray. Every week of every year, every month, every year for 7 years, they've been praying, very, very devotedly praying. And what we should do is take your parrot and bring it in with my parrots, and my parrots will be a good influence on your parrot. And so they agreed. The lady went home, got her parrot, brought it to the priest's home. They opened up the cage, put the lady's parrot. Sure, Polly wants a party, Polly wants a party. Peter Parrott looked at Paul Parrott and said, "Our prayers have finally been answered." So, thoughts and ideas. Questions. One of the questions I get most along, what is the difference between Alzheimer's and dementia? Which is a very important question and a very important answer. So if you can imagine cancer, for example, as an umbrella, lung cancer, throat cancer, skin cancer, all different kinds of cancers. Dementia is like an umbrella, and it basically means the mind is not working right. Why is the mind not working right? Well, maybe depression, maybe a mix-up in medications, maybe an infection, maybe Alzheimer's, maybe Lewy bodies, maybe Parkinson's, any number of reasons why the brain may not be working right. So important, so very, very important to get a proper diagnosis so you know what the problem is and maybe avoid a lot of worry, pain, and hardship by making sure you get the proper diagnosis. And by getting the proper diagnosis, then you have the ability to plan and to try and figure out how best you're going to be able to learn and be able to cope and be able to survive. So that's one of them. One of the things also that this book has are some pictures. And anyway, they're for sale here for Bill. What?
$15, and the net proceeds go towards the Alzheimer's cause. I cover the cost of the books already, so every dollar you spend for the books all goes towards the cause. So if you want to get a book, please do so. As you ask questions, I'll give you the microphone so that the way the TV can pick up your question as well. And he'll be over to sign books then after we're done with the Q&A. So
Bill tells me the books are $15, including sales tax, $15, but $10 if you have my autograph.
I didn't get the right change.
So anyway.
that humor runs through my mother's the same way, the same thing. So you got to get used to the Schreiber humor. It's prevalent. So yeah.
So where did we have lunch?
We had lunch at across from my office, Franklin Tavern. That's called on Franklin Street there. Yeah,
Oh, it's good,
so,
pretty good. And then also we had Citrus Cafe.
for breakfast.
What-
Yeah.
My phone was ringing.
And thank
but
you
it
for
stopped.
buying, by the way.
Thank you. Okay. Anything?
Questions?
Marty, I heard you several years ago, and during that talk, you talked about not taking care of yourself and your health issues and what had happened and what you had learned that you needed to do to take care of yourself to help Elaine. Would you explain to the other people what that was?
The question was, how could I possibly have lost the election for governor back in 1978? No, the question was about taking care of oneself. And you're one of the first people that ever heard me speak once, came back a second time. So thank you very much for that. And so, but having given a talk a while back, but the importance of taking care of yourself and what happens when you don't, and you know this yourself, when you don't get enough sleep and so forth, there's a term I call irrational irritability. Irrational irritability. As I became more tensed up, and maybe as I drank more, and maybe as I had more trouble dealing with some of those issues, what happened was that irrational irritability set in, and I would get upset and angry with people innocently across from maybe the counter at the car rental place. Or maybe my granddaughter would be standing in line wanting to buy a $3.98 necklace from Kohl's, which really upset me. And so, as I said, if we gnaw at that lifeline by not taking care of yourself, you have no use, not to your loved one, not to yourself. And I don't know, did I go into any more detail than that?
Your heart attack?
Yeah, well, those are the things. But I'm coming along good now. Oh, one thing I wanted to do was to also explain the fact, because this has to do with, if Alzheimer's I call not a chicken casserole disease. Hypothetically speaking, I have a heart attack and I'm laid up at home, people bring me chicken casserole. If I have hip surgery and I'm laid up at home, people bring me chicken casserole. If my wife has Alzheimer's, because people are ignorant of the disease, they don't know what to say and they don't know what to do and they stay home. And so a caregiver can end up then feeling abandoned by friends of 10, 20, 30 years because nobody shows up because they don't know what to do. And so, should you wish to bring me chicken casserole, it's 2700 South Shore Drive, Milwaukee. Thanks. All right. Yes, ma'am.
So my daughter.
Hold it closer.
Oh, my daughter had craniopharyngioma, and she had surgery on it. So, for those that don't know, it's a brain tumor.
Okay, hold closer too, please.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Go ahead.
And so I learned the hard way how to take care of her because the surgery didn't come out the way they thought, the way the doctors thought it would. And I was also raising my granddaughter. So along the way of life, my granddaughter is 4 years old, and my daughter's coming home from the hospital with no memory. But she did remember her daughter. Because I was wondering about that. But the thing is, I did put a princess bed up in my bedroom so I could know what my granddaughter was doing. And also, the movies that we watched were over and over the same movie so I could get sleep then. And if I got really upset about something, I would go out to the cornfield and just holler and scream out there. Because there were many times I didn't know what to do. The hospital sent me home with about 30 meds to give her. I was not qualified to give her 30 meds, so the pharmacy stayed open for me. So don't ever think that there isn't help, because if you don't ask for it, you're not going to get it. I also had the hospital keep her down into the ward that, it's not the general ward that you have to go to be taken, let out of the hospital. There was just so many things that I learned along the way of life. And with coping what she had to go through, she tried to wear clothes that she couldn't wear anymore. So then you have to hide them. You have to go buy her new clothes. It's just something that happens in life. And you still have that love there for them. But you also have to take care of yourself. I had friends of hers that came over while I went to when I had appointments going to the grocery store, etc. And I said, you've got to make sure you stay awake, because if you don't, she's going to go up and try to make herself something to eat. So I've got plastered around the kitchen, don't do this, don't do that. And that seemed to help. But then one of the caretakers, her friend, fell asleep. And she came home, and it's like, she said, I fell asleep. I said, it's like, and then she knew I was kidding with her. But, it was in the same room right by my daughter. So it's like, okay. But still, they were friends coming over. And I'm sorry that friends don't show up for people, like you said, they're afraid. They don't know what to do. So it's like, okay, just talk to them about it. Just give them your heart and talk to them about it, because people that have Alzheimer, they want to be able to talk to you about things or have action from you, because my granddaughter played the little games at 4 years old, and her mother learned. And, okay, after 18 years, I think it is, or 16 years, my daughter is doing great. She has her own little business now. So I could breathe at the end of all of this. But like I said, if people don't, if we don't tell people to come over and just speak with them, let them speak to you. And like you said about going fishing, that's great. So what? Who's going to know that? Except that it's going to help them feel better. Sorry, I took up all the time.
No, well, thank you very much for sharing our admiration for you, for the love and the patience and the care and the compassion that you showed. And not an easy journey, I'm sure of that. And but good news to hear that your daughter seems to be doing well. And how about the granddaughter, the 4-year-old?
She graduated from University of Wisconsin.
Whoa! All right. Well, thank you, and thank you for sharing that. And
I hope it helps, because I already kind of went through that, except that she got better along the way. It just took a long time, And I had to watch my cool too with her because I didn't want to scream at her because she didn't know. You know, she didn't know what was wrong. It's like, okay, well, go out to the cornfields.
And you know, when you said off to the cornfield to scream, so I had a mentor, and boy, it was a tough day. So I called up my mentor and I said, do you ever just feel like screaming? He says, not only do I feel, he says, I actually scream. And there were these emotions. Anyway, thank you.
Yep.
Anything further?
Any other questions?
I wondered what you do if a caregiver shuts you out as a friend, almost becoming reclusive, taking care of the loved one who has Alzheimer's.
Well, that's the question is, what about a friend who excludes you, a caregiver that excludes you? I don't know precisely the answer, other than to try and find out. You know, I hate to be sort of silly, but to find out why, either by talking with family, with children, and so forth, and say what it is. And the care, what happens to some caregivers is we become isolated because we don't want to confront what we're dealing with. And so we go through denial. So someone comes and says, well, I want to help you take care of Elaine. Well, what do you mean? Elaine's fine, you know, don't worry, I'll take care of it. And it could be, in essence, a type of denial. And I guess I would say, you know, just continue type of trying. And maybe it's say, well, okay, let me pick up something from the pharmacy for you, or let me come and visit and take so-and-so for a walk.
Yeah, that's part of it. She won't answer the phone and stuff. What I've done, if I drive by, the garage is open and I see the car, I just go to the house.
Okay.
I just walk in through the garage
So you walk in through
and confront her. Yeah.
Okay, and what happens then?
Well, then it's acceptable. You know, I'm already, you know, I don't think she would ever throw anybody out of her house, but those are the little things I've done, because it's very hard to break in through a telephone or the text messaging. She just ignores it.
Yeah.
Keep trying, I guess that's
Yeah,
it.
please. And I think if I were you, I would make sure you understand it's nothing personal. I think it's just a matter of protection and maybe a bit of denial. So.
I'm not an expert, but I think in any kind of situation, if you say, if I could do something, let me know, that may be truthful and honest, but it's also kind of empty. So you say specifically, hey, I'm going to the store, can I get this for you? How about this, a specific thing to ask about? Then a person might say, oh, I can't use that, but I could use this. Because it's kind of becomes trite when you say, if I can do something, let me know. Well, you're probably sincere about it, but maybe it's not received that way.
And my sister, his mom, had dementia and passed away as a result of complications of dementia. So he has an understanding.
When it got to the point where you were not comfortable with your wife being alone, did you accept people's offers to allow you to go and have some fun or just get out for hours? Or did you feel compelled to be the one?
When I felt Elaine could no longer be alone, I tried to get people to come into the home and spend time with her. She would have nothing to do with any person coming into the home to be of help to her. And so I was trying to look for some answers. So I had a friend who said they would come by and visit. And so I told Elaine, I said, this woman who just moved into the neighborhood wants to come, brand new, would you show her where the grocery store is? No. And that was very uncharacteristic of Elaine. She wanted nothing to do with anybody. So it was more and more time with me. But then finally, I figured I could maybe have her go to daycare, and she refused that. Well, then I'm thinking, she always liked to go and study. She had a master's degree in early childhood. How about going back to college classes? Yes. Wink, wink. Therapeutic fibbing. We went to daycare. I talked to the people in daycare in advance, and they understood. So I got a notebook for Elaine and also a ballpoint pen, and she went in and she took notes during the day, and in the evening we reviewed the notes, and so that was helpful though. But a caregiver has to be almost like a Sherlock Holmes in looking for different ways of how you can help your loved one cope with some of their concerns and their worries and so forth.
So that example that you just gave, and the one that you mentioned earlier, the woman who wrote Creating Moments of Joy, have you seen that book?
Yes, that's quite a
Yeah,
good.
she strongly suggests entering the individual's world,
Mm-hmm.
and even if it feels uncomfortable to us. So I was sort of searching where you were on that spectrum.
Yes. Well, there's what I call the pivot. And the one pivot is when we let go of this person who once was, who now is. That's very difficult. That's by the caregiver, okay? But then there's the other pivot, which is by the person living with Alzheimer's, and that's when they finally enter what I call their own world completely. Then you don't get the discouragement and the frustration and questions about all kinds of things. Both of them are extremely benefit. I think with Elaine passing into her own world completely, I think that was a blessing for her because she no longer had so much of that anxiety and worry and being upset.
It's like Oprah Winfrey running around here with it.
As a caregiver, do you have suggestions for us on how to deal with issues of personal care?
No. Do I have questions about how to deal with matters of personal care? I don't. ADRC, Aging and Disability Resource Center, may help you with that. And does anybody have any suggestions as to where you would go or what you would do to help with personal care? It's particularly tough for men as caregivers to do that, and you just got to. I don't know of any option but other than to dive in and try and do it. I don't have anything to offer you. I wish I would, but I don't. Yes, sir?
So getting to your point, I was a caregiver for my mom, and I asked him about, do caregivers die earlier than non-caregivers, and he said yes. The advice he gave me is take care of yourself. The advice that I could give you is take care of your health, eat right, get your exercise, get enough sleep, do the things that you need to do to stay healthy. Because if you're the primary caregiver and you go down and out for the count, then you're no good to the person that you're giving care to. And then you're both going to be in a bind.
I think in your book you mentioned you're in the airplane and you say if the mask comes down, they give the announcement, put your own mask on first before you help out your person sitting next to you. Probably the same idea there. That was in your book, I believe, correct? If I read it right. So.
Correct. I'm just thinking we should call this the Bill and Marty Show.
We have a limited supply of books. When those are gone, I'll go to the van, get more boxes of limited supply if you need them. So feel free to, when we're done here, to stop by and get a book and an autograph of that. Question.
I have the first book, but what's the second book about?
It's the same thing, just they added some other
Bill?
notes from. I'm sorry.
She asked me. The stories are exactly the same.
Okay.
But in addition, in this book is a discussion between myself and a neuropsychologist to reaffirm what my experience was in guidance for other people. And so that would be an addition. Plus, if you're interested in a bibliography and also in an index, an appendix and so forth, this is a more professional kind of book as it relates to having background information, as I said, with the notes and index and so forth. So, and also, that's about the main, the story is the same. Story is the same. Oh, I was going to say, but while you're doing that, so we have a website, my2elaines.com, all one word. So go there for further information if you wish, my2elaines.com. With what I am doing, I told my Rotarians this morning that I do not like golf, I like golfers, but I do not like golf. But this is my golf, to be with you and maybe hit a birdie or an eagle or something like that, but just to be together with friends and to talk about it. You're so kind and gracious for the courtesy. So, but know, and also if you know of a group, a church group or a book club or something you think would benefit by this kind of discussion, you can get in touch with us through the website, my2elaines.com. So you had one more.
It's not really a question, Marty, but I have no close family left, and I decided for my beneficiary to take a grace. And one of the reasons I did it is because they have a caregivers fund, and 25% of whatever I have left will go into that caregivers fund. They will come into a home and give a caregiver a break. And I think caregivers are lost. I think they aren't thought of. So that to me was very important.
What is the name of the group?
A grace.
Grace.
A grace.
A-G-R, A in Grace.
A and Grace. Okay, and how do I find out about that? Just website?
Well, Bill, you know what it is. Bill can help you with
Okay,
that.
Bill, tell me. No, tell everybody.
I think it's just, Grace is a part of hospice, was it not?
Exactly,
Okay.
and I did it with Grace in Janesville.
Okay, so just look up the,
AGRACE.
Okay, good. And then, Amy, can I introduce Amy so you all know Amy? She is the one. Go ahead, Amy.
All right, thank you for coming. Marty's stories have been amazing. I just wanted to share with you, I am the newest librarian here at our library. I came here in March, and I was selected really to be a part of exploring dementia and how libraries can help in the services that can be provided. And so different things have come along with me. So the first one was starting memory cafes, and Marty talked a little bit about that. And that's a social environment, and it's for the caregiver and the person who is going through the journey together in some form of memory loss. And so it is a very social thing. We have a blast. You build a natural community, and you find out, most of the people that come find out that they're not alone. And that's a big part of it. So it's wonderful. That is our called Memory Cafe, and that is on the third Monday of each month. And so we have a different theme. Another thing that we do, because when you work with people who have some form of memory loss, layers to what you're doing is so important, because then you can keep putting more information on. Another thing we do is we have memory activity kits, and these kits are backpack. There's 10 different themes. There are all different things in them, so it's something that you can do together, or it's something that you can have that person do at all different levels. So it's really something to engage brain activity. And the last thing that we do have is Hedberg at Home, and that is for someone who can't maybe get to the library but does like reading or would like audiobooks or playaways, those kinds of things. And this is for caregivers and the person that maybe can't get there. So it is for anyone that's in that situation. And so these brochures are over there. We just want to make sure that everyone knows that libraries really do want to help the community that they're involved in. So these are things that we do.
Great, thank you for what you do.
I was introduced to Alzheimer's. Actually, my grandfather had Alzheimer's when I was younger, and we didn't know what that was at all. And so when I found out what it was, that was really, it was really touching to understand where he was coming from and why he was saying things that he was saying. I grew up multi-generational. My grandparents only lived 2 houses from us. So I grew up being around them all the time, and to see him all of a sudden change was very strange. So that was my first introduction to it. So I have a very soft spot for people as they grow older. So thank you for your time. Thank you again.
Okay.
Let's hear it for Marty.
Thank you very much.